Monsters Inc. is a story about struggling to do the right thing, where society constantly challenges your judgment, but knowing what you're doing is a moral thing to do. How word of mouth or superstition shouldn't blind your judgment of someone, regardless of what anyone says. Now, I personally think you should be skeptical of people since stranger danger, nevertheless, it gives us one of the most saddest goodbyes in Pixar movies. Which eventually brings us Monster University, the prequel to a movie that didn't seem to need a sequel since they already told a satisfying story. Keep this in mind, this is before Pixar's recent trend of constant sequels that constantly fails to meet expectations from the last film. And it really shows because unlike those films, this one managed to succeed in actually telling a good story. Of society telling you can't do it since you can't meet the standards required, and despite how hard someone tries to reach it, personal flaw holds you back. Continuing to tell the story of friendship despite there seeming no similarity with some few words exchanged, there's a lot to learn with each other. So let's talk about why Monster University is an excellent prequel. We start off with the movie seeing young Mike Wazowski and having a field trip in the Monsters Inc., where we see how he gets outcasted by his fellow classmates. He eventually decides to follow one of the monsters inside a child's room, experience his first scare, and give him the inspiration to become a scarer himself. Over time, through hard work, he managed to enter the top major scare program, being Monster University. As he wanders throughout the campus, he finds his scare competition and eventually meets his roommate, Randall. Being a prequel, they want to explain every little detail. For example, you wonder why Randall constantly squinting because Mike told him to get rid of his glasses so to use his invisibility to its full effect. In the Scare classroom, we are then introduced to Sully, whose family name has a huge reputation in the Scare community. How this young version of Sully is different from the first movie, where he has little respect towards the responsibility in being a Scare, like the job's purpose to help the city gain power, which seems to only do it for the prestige. He rather rely on his talent and training to improve upon his skills. This ideology conflicts with Mike's, who trains to be better. Think of it as Rock Lee and Gara, and you get the idea. Eventually, both of them meet for the first time, which the movie does a retcon scene in the beginning of Monsters Inc. They've been friends since they were kids.
You've been jealous of my good looks since the 4th grade, pal.
For what purpose? Well, it seems to want to retell the story of how they became friends because after Sully steals the pig from the rival university, he got invited in the Roar Club where monsters know they'll succeed in being scares, and Mike wasn't accepted, believing he won't make it, creating a rival between the two. We have a montage where Chad Mike studies to better prepare for his finals and Virgin Sully partying with his friends. We see how Mike's labor starts to bear fruit, how he's doing a lot better in class while Sully is failing. In the finals, to continue their major, they must successfully scare a child simulation. Virgin Sully acts like your classic big bully and knocks over the books Mike was studying. They both start a scare fight between each other, and Sully accidentally trips over a book, knocking over the head of the scare major program record-breaking canister, spilling out the child's scream. Where we have her explain Sully and Mike weaknesses and kicks them out of the program. Mike, believing he'll never be a scarer, remembers the scare competition, where he wagers the headmistress that if he wins, he'll join back the program. If he loses, he'll be expelled. With his team involved with a bunch of reject monsters, Mike believes he could win, however they're missing one more member. Mike asks Randall to join, but gets rejected because he joined the Chad Club. But Sully volunteers to join his side, which Mike was reluctant to accept, but has no other choice. We are introduced to the Uzuma Kappa members, with Don Carlton, the oldest of the group, who entered the university because his business closed down and wants to change his major. Harry and Terry, two-headed twins that has opposite personality. Squishy, your classic introvert that lives with his mom. And Art, who's basically a stoner. In their first competition, the both of them believe they're the MVP and will carry the team to victory by themselves. After reaching the finish line, they realize that the team needs to win together, causing them to lose their first game. And would have been kicked out, however one of the opposing teams was cheating, causing Uzuma Kappa to move on to the next challenge. This time, they'll attempt to do Mike's way, which is slow, almost causing them to lose the second challenge, which causes Solid to be fed up and does his own way, being much more brash as well as selfish. This almost caused them to lose, but the Uzuma Kappa member used their traits to distract the librarian from eliminating them, making them win the second challenge. The team begins having a bonding moment after being humiliated in the party and starts to actually work as a team, where Mike starts coaching and refining their traits to better improve upon their scare tactics. At the same time, we see Mike and Sully's relationship being similar to the first movie. This training making Uzuma Kappa win multiple competitions, leading them to the final challenge against Roar Club. The headmistress tells Sully that despite the team winning, they'll lose since their weakest link is Mike, who isn't scary at all. Sully tries to defend his friend being the soul of the team, but he has his doubts as well. In the final challenge, it seems that Uzuma Kappa are tied, with Mike and Chad being the last one to break the tide. With all his pent up rage, Mike does his best scare, breaking the record and winning the game for his team. After everything ended, Mike discovered that Sully tampered with the simulation, making it easy. This insults his pride, and thus to prove himself, he's a real scarer by scaring a child. He sneaks inside one of the magical doors, attempts to do it but fails, and he realizes that the cabin is full of children. Sully is ashamed of himself telling the mistress that he cheated, but he gets interrupted by one of the alarms and realizes what it means. The Uzma Kappa members help him reach inside the door and tries to save Mike. Eventually he finds Mike, so the both of them begin having a bonding moment where Sully tells him that sure, he's a talented scarer who doesn't need much training to succeed, but he has to meet high expectations, which is something he can't accomplish on his own. He begins praising Mike as one of the best trainers to ever live. The both try to work together by attempting to scare adults who were chasing them down. With Mike's planning and Sully's role, the both of them managed to succeed in scaring the living crap out of them, creating enough power to escape. Despite their accomplishment, the both of them get kicked out of the university and begin working from the bottom to the top of the workforce, eventually being scarers themselves. And that was Monster University, and let's have a bit why this movie works so well. One of the biggest notes for this movie is the relationship between Mike and Sully, where they manage to succeed in believing these characters are best friends. Sure, they're not childhood friends from the throwaway line, however, the writers put the effort in making complete opposites from each other into friends. Where in the beginning, Sully and Mike both have completely different ideology in being scarers. One believes that it's just instinct and you just do it without requiring any training, while Mike believes there's more to it, being technique, knowledge behind which works best usage in a specific scenario. They both are correct in their ideology, however they're missing some few things, where Sully does have the talent but can't refine it to the fullest potential, and Mike, despite having all the knowledge and the best strategy, can't do it himself. And that mold slowly starts to form where they realize they need each other to succeed. The best scene to show that that's the case, where they attempt to scare adults in order to escape the human world, something they couldn't done by themselves. Another thing that this movie does a great job is the character arc for Sully, how this big bully in the beginning, selfish, tries to do things by himself despite how regulated it is, cheats, and discriminate monsters based on their looks, which is a bit jarring seeing Sully act like a dick since he seems like a positive character, but that is the goal the movie is trying to reach. And they do succeed, where the bonding moment in Monsters Inc., he realizes how much a jerk he was towards everyone around him. Therefore, this is where he starts to begin acting as a team member, actually trying to improve upon his own skills, being trained by Mike. He begins bonding with essentially the monster's reject, when at the last chance he cheated for his friend, believing it was the right thing to do, but realized that he was just insulting Mike's pride and was secretly doing it for himself to re-enter the program. This time he owns up with his own mistakes and was willing to accept the consequences, at the same time willing to put his life in danger for a friend. And all this can help explain Sully's character in the first movie, where he was willing to put himself in danger in trying to do the right thing. Then we have Mike Wazowski, and sure, his character doesn't change like Sully, but does change his own perspectives in life, where Mike wanted to prove everyone wrong that he can do it and tries incredibly hard to study, but it's like a fish trying to climb a tree. No matter how hard he tries, he can never change that flaw in his character. And what an incredible setting to represent this in a university where students try hard in succeeding in a major that most likely they'll never be proficient in. And Mike Wazowski knows that he could never fix that flaw, but his stubbornness and pride refuses to accept it, causing him to put himself in danger. And the film answers that question that sure, Mike Wazowski will never be a scarer, but can he put his energy in other skills he's much more proficient in, coaching monsters and being the best scarer, or towards the end of the first movie, being a friendly looking monster that is able to make children laugh. And when it comes to the side characters, sure, they're not as deep like our protagonists in this film, but serve a purpose to represent the outcasts in the monster's role, but realistically with some practice they could be scarers themselves if they're given a chance. When it comes to their design, it isn't like Incredibles 2 where it feels like they belong in a different movie. Here they serve a purpose to look more friendly. There's one thing I'm not a huge fan of, is trying to explain every little detail, like Rhino being his squinting eyes, which didn't seem necessary, or his deep hatred towards Mike Wazowski, how he never loses against him, explain his deep rivalry. Personally, I don't believe they need to explain that, because the way I understood Randall's character was supposed to be this toxic coworker that is like seeing people succeed better than him in the same career. And surprisingly, for this movie that tries to explain everything about him, they don't bring up how he was able to build machines. Was that his second major? Their jokes are pretty funny.
I can't go back to jail!
We're brothers who share the same mom/wife.
And there's some that seems pretty stupid, like the Snell being late for class, but he was so slow that he missed the whole semester. Like, what? Was he that tunnel vision that ignored everyone and events happening around him? With the theme and characters absolutely carrying this movie and being a faithful successor for the first film, that doesn't absolutely destroy the characters and do things that goes against everything from the last film. And I really wish this type of quality was able to continue after this with the other sequels from the original films, but seems as though it was the last fading light from Pixar Studios. Thanks for watching, and bye.